Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the graphic novel Batman White Knight. Now this was an 8-issue limited series that ran from October 2017 to May 2018. The collected graphic novel was published in October of 2018, and this is part of DC's Black Label line. And this is written and illustrated by Sean Murphy. Now, before I talk about any of the plot or anything, I'll just go over a little bit about my background with the character of Batman, the Black Label line, and the writer-artist Sean Murphy. So, Batman is a character, he's one of my favorite superheroes, and I've been reading his stories off and on since I was 9 years old in 1987. That's when I really got into Batman. But my familiarity with the character goes further back than that. My earlier memories of Batman is when I got both him and Spider-Man, when you could still get the big, large Mego dolls, and they had the cloth costumes. I got both of those for Christmas. And then, of course, you have the Adam West TV show. But then when I really got into the character and started religiously reading the comics was 1987. And the DC Black Label line, this is a line they've had on the go for a few years now, DC Comics. And I've read a few of their Black Label books, and I've read another Batman Black Label book, and I reviewed that earlier on in my channel. And it's a line that I'm actually, so far, out of what I've read, I've been really enjoying. And I think it's probably some of the best stuff that DC is doing right now. And the Black Label line kind of replaced DC's Vertical line that was kind of gone away for a while. Then they relaunched it, and they, all these writers and artists that were on it at that time were a bunch of donkeys, and they just drove it right into the ground, and they got rid of it. And this is basically what they replaced it with. But it's similar, but it's different, because the Black Label kind of covers the more traditional superheroes, where Vertical was more for stuff that didn't quite fit into the regular DC continuity, kind of more like oddball stories that you had that were strange, more like on the supernatural horror side, but were very good. Like you had Preacher, that was really good, Neil Gaiman's Sandman, Swamp Thing, all that kind of stuff. A lot of really good stories. So now I'll talk a little bit, but I'll jump ahead of myself here. Also, the artist and writer Sean Murphy, my background with him. So I'm mostly aware of the artist through Twitter and YouTube videos. So that's what I'm aware of. I used to follow Sean Murphy on Twitter until he got rid of his Twitter account. But as far as his art and writing goes, now I might have read something of his in the past, not known it or forgotten about it, but as far as I know, this is my first dip into anything he's done, is this graphic novel, Batman White Knight. And I have to say, for my first time with his artwork and writing, I was pretty impressed. So now I'll talk a little bit about the plot of the book. So I'm going to go into, there's going to be some spoilers in this, so if you haven't read the book, just be cautious. I'm not going to give too much of the story away, but there are certain aspects that might be spoilers, so that I'm going to be talking about. So just spoiler warning. So the plot of the book takes place, now the story takes place outside the regular DC continuity. So this is not a part of the regular DC continuity. This is like another universe. So the story starts off, it's another run-of-the-mill Batman adventure. Batman's chasing the Joker through a bunch of buildings and stuff. So he ends up injuring the Joker in this building, but the Joker ends up in this building that's full of these experimental antipsychotic drugs, and he swallows a bunch of them. Joker ends up swallowing a bunch of these pills, and the result of that is he is cured of being the Joker, and he becomes Jack Napier again. So the way the story treats the Joker and his past, what he was before he became the Joker, Jack Napier, it's like they're two separate personalities. And now the Joker himself, this was a different personality that's been in control this whole time. And now Jack Napier, this antipsychotic drug, has brought Jack Napier back out and put him in control and subdued the Joker. And so now that he's out, Jack Napier is essentially cured. He wants to re-enter society, and he actually throws his hat in the political ring, and he wants to run for a city councilman. And he sees that, there's some corruption going on here that would involve Batman. Batman causes all this property damage. He stirs the pot with all these supervillains. Maybe he's not such a good thing for Gotham City. So he wants to run for the city. And if he gets elected, He wants to expose whatever corruption is around Batman and the police department. And so that's the hook of the story, and that's where things take off. Now, Batman has to deal with this, and it's difficult for him because this is not a regular supervillain. He can't just punch his way out of this one. So it makes for a very interesting Batman story. Now, before I get into things that I liked about the book and things that I didn't like about the book, let's take a look at the graphic novel itself. Now, taking a closer look at the actual book itself, the graphic novel itself. So I want to say, though, that this is a series that I didn't collect on a monthly basis. I didn't collect what as they call them, the floppies. And I think this is a book that's a lot better if you just get the graphic novel of it and read it all in one shot. Because now modern comics are not really written to be read as a floppy anymore, or as a monthly installment anymore. They're more written with these, stories that stretch over 6, 7, 8, or like 12 issues. And so you're really getting like small slivers of a story, where years ago you could read a comic monthly and get like a complete episode, and there might be some subplots that go from month to month, but so you could, you didn't have to invest so much in like, well, now I have to get all 6 parts or whatever. So that's how I think the writing of comics have changed over the years. Everything is written to be reprinted in a graphic novel. So then they can kind of make their money twice. The guys who are the people who collect the floppies, they make their money that way, and then from the people who go out and buy it all in one shot. And I have to say, DC Black Label, I've been really enjoying their stuff. And so this is Batman White Knight, written and drawn by Sean Murphy with Matt Hollingsworth. And so there is a hardcover version of this. I couldn't get the hardcover version. I do have the hardcover version of the sequel to this, but I haven't read it yet. The Joker Goes Sane. Set in a world where the clown prince of crime has been cured of his madness, Batman White Knight follows the man now known as Jack Napier as he embarks on a quest to heal the city he once terrorized after reconciling with his long-suffering partner Harley Quinn. He sets in motion a carefully plotted campaign to discredit the one person whom he views as Gotham City's true enemy, Batman. His crusade exposes a decades-long history of corruption within Gotham City Police Department and transforms Napier into a city councilman and civic hero. But when the sins of his past return to threaten everything that he has accomplished, the distinction between savior and destroyer begin to break down for both the Joker and Batman alike, and with them, any hope for Gotham's future. So that is the back of the book, and now take a look at some of the artwork in here. Now, what I like about this comic and about the artwork is he puts a lot of Easter eggs in here. So there's some right on this page. So I'll point them out. So as you can see, there's a poster there. That's a scene from the '89 Batman film. And then he has the Batman animated series. So there's a lot of that in here, like these little Easter eggs. And I have to say the artwork is really good in this book. Now, as far as art style goes, he has a very distinct style, Sean Murphy, and I don't have a lot of stuff that he's drawn. I have maybe this one other book, maybe another one, but his style totally suits the world of Batman, in my opinion. He really suits the world of Batman, and I'd like to see him do other things like kind of similar to Batman. There are certain artists, in my opinion, that their style really lends to one genre. There's some other artists, you can put them on almost anything and they can pull it off. But like, I really like Sean Murphy's art style for a book like Batman, but I don't think it would work for something like The Incredible Hulk. Because I like how he does the heavy shadows. He's really good at that. Now, the one thing about this comic, I have to say, I'll talk a bit more about this later, is I don't like the way Batman looks. He's drawn very well. I just don't like the way the suit costume's been redesigned for this particular story. But yeah, and he does the city backgrounds really well. And the colors of this book are done really well as also. Like, it really suits the mood of the story, the coloring, the artwork, everything. Like, this book is really good. Like, it's pretty much firing on all cylinders. Now, the story is not my favorite Batman story, but I have to say it is really solid. And where it's out of continuity, it's not in with the rest of the regular continuity, he can really have a lot of freedom and play around with how events happen and things like that. Yeah, his artwork is really, like this page here, I like the sequence, this battle between Jack Napier and Batman. Does a really good job. I'd like to see him do Daredevil. That would be cool. I'd like to see what he could do on that comic. This here is another one of my favorite pages in this book, this double page spread of the 89 Batmobile. What's cool about this is they bring out all the old Batmobiles, and where it's a story that's out of continuity, they can get away with this a lot easier. So you have the 89 Batmobile in here, and you have the 1960s Batmobile, you have the Tumbler from the Nolan films, and they're all like, you know, you have like an army of Batmobiles. It's a really cool idea. And again, this page here, I like this panel of Batman diving down through the city. And he does a great job of doing the city scenes in this book. With the heavy shadows and all that, he did a really fantastic job. Then at the end, we got some, you know, pin-ups, as they call them, or one-pages, illustrations that are pretty good as well. That Batgirl's not bad. I like that one. And then at the end, you get kind of like some bonus features with sketches of characters and things like that. And there's the Batmobile that was created for the story itself, along with all the other ones that he's pulled from DC continuity. So a really fantastic graphic novel. I really enjoyed this one. So as you can see, a very well put together, very nice looking book this is. And artwork very good. So now I'm going to talk about some of the things that I liked and some of the things that I didn't like. Now there's not too much about the story actually that I didn't like. But here's some of the things I liked. The book being out of continuity. Now I like this because it gives the writer a lot more freedom to play around with things and switch characters around and put unique twists on characters and stuff like that. Now usually I'm a stickler for continuity when it comes to movies and TV shows. But I understand that in comics, it's really hard to keep continuity consistent just because of the nature of superheroes, because they don't ever age. So Batman's always 30 years old. He's been 30 years old when I started reading him in the 80s, and 30 or 40 years later, he's still 30 years old. So, you know, it's harder to keep continuity with superheroes. The continuity and canon and all that, it's always been kind of like tongue-in-cheek and more hit and miss with superhero books. So this is something that DC, I thought, has always done better than Marvel, is these out-of-continuity stories with their characters. And you can get some really good stories this way, which this is one way I wish Marvel would mimic DC more and do more stuff like this. Now, the other thing that I really liked about this book is the idea that, and this is not a new idea, is the idea that Batman, for all the control he has and how obsessed he is with trying to control the world around him, he is somewhat of a loose cannon. And there are times, and this has been dealt with in past Batman stories, where that obsession will push him very close, almost over the line sometimes. And this is where side characters in Batman's world, in my opinion, come in and why they're important. So characters like Jim Gordon, Robin, Nightwing, Alfred, and Batgirl. Is that these characters are kind of more down to earth than Batman is himself, because Batman's not a very relatable character. He's a cool character, but he's not relatable in the same way Spider-Man is. But the side characters are, and then they can see that Batman is going to cross the line, and they can bring him down to earth, and that's why these characters are important. So that's one thing I really liked about this book. And the other thing I liked is it kind of asks the question of, well, what if Jack Napier was cured of the Joker, or he never became the Joker? Would he be a more formidable foe for Batman than the Joker himself? Because the Joker is just like this force of nature. He's just pure chaos. That's why he's such a good villain for Batman. Because Batman's all about control. Everything, he wants to control the world around him. That's why he became Batman. He wants to take everything in his own hands and control the world around him. He's like a control freak, where The Joker is the complete opposite of that. He's all about chaos and causing chaos and destruction. And that's why he's a good villain, because he's a good foil for Batman. He highlights Batman's need for control. That's why he's a good villain. But Jack Napier's not like that. He's more of a controlled character. He's almost more like Batman than the Joker. He's more like Bruce Wayne. He's like a more of a, closer character to that. Now that he's cured, now he's not just pure madness. He has a defined goal, and he's not really going outside the law to accomplish that. So now it's someone who normally Batman's not used to dealing with this, because he's always had in the past, because of Jim Gordon, he's always had the city on his side. But now that's not really the case because of Jack Napier. And in a lot of ways, he's a more formidable foe than Batman's really ever had to face before because of that. Because Batman just can't muscle his way out of it, like in the past, or even think his way out of it. So that was a cool thing about this story. And the other thing, it asked a question that's never been asked, as far as I know, in Batman comics, is who deals with all the destruction Batman causes in Gotham City? When Batman goes out and starts destroying stuff with the Batmobile and all the side destruction that gets caused with him trying to take down all these supervillains, who's on the hook for that? How does the police department deal with that? How do they answer to the public for that? Are the taxpayers on the hook for it? So that gets answered, and that gets asked and actually answered in the story. I thought that was really cool. And now, as I said before, where this story takes place outside of continuity, there's a twist to one of the characters that I thought was really cool in this book, and that's the character of Harley Quinn. Now, over the years, Harley Quinn has changed a lot. Now, the character originated in the Batman the Animated Series. And now that version of Harley Quinn with the one-piece suit and the big hammer and all that, with the jester suit, that is my favorite version of Harley Quinn. Now, there's some other fans that prefer the newer version, where her costume is a bit more racy looking, and she's been sexed up a lot, and that's the version that you saw in the Suicide Squad movie, and that's the more popular version that's in the comic books now. And for some people, that's their favorite version. Now, the cool thing that Sean Murphy does in this story is he actually takes the character of Harley Quinn and splits her in two, so she is now two characters. So you have the original Harley Quinn that was the Batman the Animated version, and then you have this new Harley Quinn, which is the more modern day version. And they actually go against each other. They have different ideas of who Jack Napier should be and what he should be doing and what the relationship of him with him should be and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really cool twist to take the character and split her in two. Thought that was neat. And then on top of that, the artwork. Artwork is very good in this comic book. Now, I wasn't familiar with his artwork before that, but it totally fits the world of Batman. I think he does a good job of drawing that world with the heavy shadows, the gritty looking streets. He's kind of got that sketchy, gritty style. Really works well for a character like Batman. And I'd like to see him do like something on Daredevil or like the Shadow, even the Punisher, those kind of street gritty level characters, and like those noir, two-fisted detective tales, as they used to call them. His artwork totally suits that. Now, I don't know if his artwork, I don't think I'd like his artwork, say, on like drawing like the Incredible Hulk or Silver Surfer or something like that. But it definitely fits with this noir, even like a horror book. It would be good for things like that. So he might even be really good at drawing the Swamp Thing. His style might suit that as well. But for this story, artwork and the coloring just bang on, fit the story, very well done. Now, some of the things I didn't like about this. Now, there's not a lot about this story that I didn't like, but there's a few things. But one thing that really stood out to me, and I really didn't like it, was the design of Batman's costume in the story. I just didn't like it at all. I thought the high up collar, you can see it right there in the cover. The high collar looked stupid. I talked about this earlier in the video when I was showing the graphic novel off, but I hated the waist high hip waiter looking boots. It didn't look good with the short gloves. It just didn't work for me at all. This is like one of my least favorite versions of Batman's costume that I've seen in the comics in a long time. Didn't do it for me, didn't like it at all. And the other thing I didn't like, I guess, it's not really a thing that I didn't like, I guess, but it's more of an observation, is that for a story that took place outside of the regular continuity of the Batman comics and the DC universe, the writer still kind of played it pretty safe for what he did with the characters. So he didn't really push the envelope a lot. Like, you could have easily killed off a few major characters. Like, one character does die. one major character, but you could have put it further, like had like some of the supervillains get wasted, or even one of the side characters get wasted, like Nightwing, Batgirl, any one of them. You know, you could kind of push it more, because, you know, it counts, but it doesn't count, if you know what I mean, because it's outside of regular comic book continuity. Where if you had done that, say in the regular, there'd be a big uproar from fans and stuff like that. But where this is almost like an Elseworlds tale, you could do it. So overall, I think this is a really good Batman story. You know, I've been reading Batman books, like I said, off and on for years, and it's had high points and low points. This is definitely a high point as far as the modern day Batman stuff. This story is very good. If you haven't read it, you should pick it up. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.